Morning, it's Saturday, July 8th, 2023. I'm Larissa, and this is my video diary. I want to talk about and to my fellow sexual and violent assault survivors, particularly those who, like me, have never ever had any justice for the violence brought and invasion brought upon our bodies. Last night, Omar and I were watching reruns of Law and Order, and there's an episode which I've seen it before. I remember seeing it when it was new, and I remember, having seen it many times since then. But it's an episode. It has what is the actor's name? He's dead now. Played Capote. Anyway, the episode is about a woman who is raped, a reporter who's doing a story on drug houses in the city, and she has a questionable background or whatever, and anyway, she's raped by these four men, three teenagers and an adult, right? And it's about getting justice for her and all this shit, and I was so angry. Last night it just made me so angry. And I don't know what it was about watching it last night, because like I said, I've seen it many times before. And but it was just too much. It was just too much. It was like a fantasy. Like, oh, look, there's people. There's all these law enforcement who give a shit in this episode. Oh, and there's the district attorney, like all these people, they give a shit, right? Like in the episode, there is no support like that. There's no support like that for survivors. And I've been assaulted on a number of occasions, right? It's not like it wasn't a one-time thing where it's like, oh, I'm scarred for. This is like, I've been assaulted throughout my life, right? When I was a teenager, when, but the one that just sits out here in California, right? Like, it's a joke that anybody gives a shit about any of it. Now, at one point, I was held hostage, and a guy dumped blood in my house. Like, there was like all these awful, awful things, and he still walks free. And then I got him into court because finally, and the judge in Watsonville was a joke, right? So and then in Oakland, I went to the police. I had wounds. I had bruises. I had puncture wounds. I had like they did nothing. They were awful. They questioned me out in public in front of people, and there were people walking by, right? While they were harassing me, making a joke of what had happened to me. And I wasn't out at the club or anything. That happened in my apartment building. Right? And my next door neighbor, they drugged me when this happened, and I couldn't see, and I eventually passed out, but I could hear for a while, right? And I know my next door neighbor was there, and he wasn't there when I arrived at the place. When I arrived where it happened, it was just me and the woman whose apartment it was. And I remember, the last thing I remember is sitting down on her couch, right? That's the last thing I remember. And the next day I saw him, and I asked him, I said, "Were you there last night?" And he was like, or it wasn't the very next day, it was the day after. It was like 2 days after. The day after Mariah Resnick came to my house. And so she saw me in the aftermath of what happened. She's an attorney. That's why I don't trust her either. Right? An attorney saw what happened to me and failed to help me in any way other than to bring me an Alka-Seltzer. I had broken blood vessels on my face. I had scratches all up my arm. I hurt. I was dry heaving. I've never been sick like that before or since. It was, and the shock, like the pure shock of like, did that actually happen? And only having like snapshots of the event, but I remember hearing his voice, and so the next time I saw him, which was within a couple days, I asked him, were you there? And he was like, "At Susan's?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Maybe." And then he wouldn't talk to me anymore. And Susan, whose apartment it happened at, wouldn't talk to me. Finally, I cornered her. I saw her coming into the building, and I cornered her. She couldn't avoid me. And her comment to me was like, "You sure did love that blue dress. If you want it, I have it. It's torn now, but you can have it." I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I have no idea what they gave me. I have no idea what they gave me. I have no idea what they did to me. I have no idea what I said or anything. I know that I couldn't see. And then I was totally blacked out. I have no idea what happened to me. And like I said, I was covered in wounds. And after a week had gone by, I finally went to the police. Like I said, nothing was done. There was no investigation. They wanted to detain me. Yeah. There's no justice. There's no justice for sexual assault survivors. And the whole Me Too movement bullshit, all of those Hollywood actresses with Harvey Weinstein, I don't feel bad for a goddamn single one of you. I have been in the position where I've been sexually propositioned for work in the entertainment industry. Yeah. You turn it down. You say no thank you and walk away. You do something else. Right? Then you all come out boo-hooing. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. After you've had careers and made money, blah, 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 blah. I can't take any of you bitches seriously. And that's not to say that I think Harvey Weinstein's a great guy. I'm sure he isn't. But who goes to an interview in somebody's bedroom like that? When you're working in an industry where people have millions upon millions of dollars to work with, who goes to an interview in a hotel room, maybe in a conference center, Maybe. But in a hotel room? Oh, yeah, come up to my hotel room for this interview. I'm not saying anybody has the right to touch you if you don't want to be touched. I am saying that there's some brain. You have to have some brains here, right? And the guy that propositioned me was a producer in Detroit, Marshall Block, and he works with Launch Showcase. And after the showcase, I had gone back to Detroit. He doesn't live in Detroit proper, but he works the Metro Detroit area. He lives out in the sticks. I'd gone in Detroit for my professor Gilda Snowden's funeral. And since I was in town, I was going to be in town, I contacted him to say, hey, can we talk about my projects? And he said, sure, come to my studio, which he had his studio. It was at his house. All right, whatever. So a lot of music producers have recording studios at their house. That's, BZ Lewis has his recording studio at his house. This is not an unusual thing, right? So I go out to his house, and he basically tells me that I'm too old, and that we listen to some music. He's like, yeah, you're never gonna make it, and we're looking for younger girls, blah blah blah. Yeah, you're really good, but whatever. I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, oh, it was late, and I hadn't had dinner. And he said, oh, you want to go have dinner? And I said, oh, is there someplace around here? And he's like, yeah, follow me. There's a restaurant. Like, it was out in the sticks. There weren't many places. Well, he took me down to a hotel. We went into the restaurant in the hotel because there was a restaurant at the hotel. And while we're at the bar, at the restaurant, he propositioned me to get a room. Oh, it's awfully dark out there. Maybe you don't want to be driving. This isn't that bad of a place. And the proposition, was like, if I got this room with him, oh, maybe then I could, he'd work on my project. I didn't bite. No, thank you. I left. No, thank you. I left. Yeah. That's how that works. So, all that Me Too garbage did nothing to help survivors of assault who, like me, have never had any kind of justice. Just continued violation. Breaking into my house, stealing books with song lyrics, stealing paintings, stealing my panties, right? Back in Oakland, breaking into my house, destroying family heirlooms, stealing tools, stealing journals and sketchbooks, right? Yeah, that was after when I went to Chicago to do Launch Showcase. That's where I met Marshall Block, who later propositioned me in the Detroit area, and he and his buddy they fly to Southeast Asia. Yeah, I wonder what they're doing down there. Trafficking, probably, right? The industry is so sleazy. The industry is so sleazy. Launch Showcase, sleazy. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's sleazy. Keep your kids away because they do children all the way up through adults. Yeah. There's no justice. I was just so angry last night. So angry. And I carry this resentment and anger all the time, and I don't think it will ever go away. I think the only thing that would satisfy me would be to see one or more of the people who have harmed me go to prison. I'd like to know who all was there that night in Oakland. I'd like to know, what did they do to my body? What did they give me? What did they put in my body? Because I certainly didn't consent to that. I don't do drugs. I consume cannabis. Okay, that's like it. But it's like even taking aspirin for me. Aspirin for me is a hard drug, right? Like, and so I think about all of the women and children who never ever see any justice for the harm that's done to them. And Hollywood puts out these fantasies of oh yeah, there's people out there fighting for you. Oh yeah, the law's on your side. No, it's not. Nobody gives a shit. Not even my own uncle, who's a fucking lawyer. Nobody in my family gave a shit. Nobody cares. My family would prefer, and as they did when I was a teen, to just pump me full of drugs to shut you up. Shut the fuck up. Oh, you're inconvenient. We're tired of hearing about it. We don't understand. Why are you so angry, you little slut? Right? And I learned doing a workshop with Bay Area Women Against Rape, BayWar, that's how most families react. Most families would rather re-victimize the person who's the survivor by telling them it's their fault, to maintain a facade of perfection in the family, rather than nurture, love, and support the person who has been harmed. They would rather just continue to harm you until you're gone. And the physical assaults, that's where I think a lot of the chronic pain that I deal with comes from, right? Oh, you gotta work on yourself, Larissa. Release those negative emotions. Release it. Gotta be forgiving. There's some things you don't fucking forgive. That's not something you forgive. Particularly like when you've had the borders of your body, the sovereignty of your body. Forget about the sovereignty of nations. Let's talk about the sovereignty of your body. Right? Over and over and over. And your family doesn't, the people who say they love you, the people who are supposed to love you. Omar didn't do anything. I asked when I wanted to get a lawyer, and we don't have the money for a lawyer. Just forget about it. Just get over it. Why can't you get over it? Why can't you get over it? Why can't you get over it? That's why every anti-choice asshole that's out there at this point in my life, I wish upon them what was done to me, and then come back to me and tell me how you feel about choice. I wish every evil thing that was done to me and my body upon you and your children. And then come back to me and tell me how you feel about choice. That neighbor of mine in Oakland, he worked for the Oakland A's at the time. And when I went and did launch showcase. I didn't finish saying, we also at that time went to Vegas for a vacation. And I was threatened by a Gambino family member in the Bellagio when I sang along with the piano guy at the piano bar. And then I got real sick on the plane ride home, which was like the next morning. After having breakfast in the Bellagio. And when we got home, our house my stuff had been ransacked. And I know the guy that threatened me was a Gambino because he was arrested later. I happened to see a news story a few years later. And I recognized the guy. I'm like, that is the guy who threatened me at the Bellagio in Vegas. Anyway, my next door neighbor now works in Vegas. That person. Yeah. Why wouldn't the mobsters who tried to kill me hire somebody who was there to see me be assaulted? Probably they were like, hey, yeah, that qualifies you to work for us. We don't like that bitch either. She had the nerve to sing out loud, right? So, to my fellow survivors who have been through horrific experience and have received zero support and have had zero justice and live with not just the memories of the attacks themselves, but live with the reality that there is nobody who gives a shit what's done to you. And that as far as law enforcement and government is concerned, that you're a joke and that your family thinks you're a slut and that you're a bad person and that there's, it's your fault. To those people, to the people who can relate to what I'm saying, I love you. I believe you. And I know what it's like to live with it. And I know what it's like to live with the resulting chronic pain. Whether that pain is because of injury from the attacks or neurological or physical, either one, or whether because that pain is encoded in the nervous system. Which I think for me it's both, right? I love you. And I understand. And it wasn't right what happened to you any more than it was right what happened to me. And just know, every time you buy tickets to any concert, anytime you go to Vegas, anytime you go see a movie, you're putting money in the pockets of the people who abused you. That's why I don't go to concerts or movies or any sporting events or anything anymore. Because all of those people in that entertainment industry, all of them, even when you're going, especially when you're going to Disney, all of those people are the ones who raped you. They all profit off of the lack of justice that you received. Yep. All of them. And to me, the women are the worst. The women are the worst. So go ahead and Me Too that one. Hollywood. Go ahead and Me Too that one. Fuck you.